Good evening. My name is Jeff Smith. I am chairperson of the Webster Groves Planning Commission. We are a 9-member board of citizens appointed by the City Council to review development proposals and make recommendations to the City Council regarding future development in the city. In addition to the members of the Plan Commission participating in person and via teleconference, we have a few other representatives of the city I would like to introduce. Councilmember Hickson Shepard, City Attorney Peter Bruntrager, and City Planner Joel Pugh. I would like to welcome you all to tonight's meeting of the Commission and take this opportunity to explain how we operate. As indicated in our agenda, we will begin with the regular session of the meeting when we will hear new applications for rezoning or subdivisions. We will hear a staff report and the applicant will explain the proposal. We will then ask for comments from the public. At that time, anyone with an interest in the proposal may indicate to city staff they have a question or would like to express their opinion. To make sure that we accurately record your name, we ask that you fill out a speaker's card if you're in person and turn it in to Mr. Pugh. Now I've lost my place. For those on Zoom, please click raise hand feature on Zoom. To make sure that we accurately record your name, we ask that you identify your full name and address at the beginning of your comment, either in person or on Zoom. When you make your comments, we ask that you be as concise as possible and not repeat a point made by a previous speaker. We also ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. One person who is a spokesperson for any organization may have 6 minutes to comment. After all citizens have spoken, the applicant will be asked to respond to any questions that have been raised during the hearing. When we have finished reviewing one proposal, we will move on to the next application. Comments concerning items not on the agenda should be made during the public comments section of the agenda near the beginning of the meeting. When we've completed the regular portion of the agenda, we will go into executive session. At that time, the commission will discuss the proposal and may decide to vote on the application or postpone the decision. You're welcome to remain and listen to the discussion, but there will be no additional opportunity for public comment at that time. Our recommendations are set to the City Council. In most cases, the Council will conduct a similar hearing and must enact an ordinance before the proposal is finally approved. If the Plan Commission takes a vote tonight, the City Council will likely take up this issue at its next meeting. If you want information regarding our vote or the progress of the application, you may contact city staff at City Hall. I would ask that everyone turn off cell phones or silence them, and that the secretary read the first item for tonight's regular meeting.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the February 3rd meeting minutes.
Any comments? I have a number, but I will defer to others for now.
I probably have some of the same.
Okay.
Would you like to go through your
Sure. And I guess not asking for corrections at this point or revisions, but there's a couple places where we say a question was asked. I'd like to know those future who that was, if we can identify which council member asked those questions. Joel was asked why this is halfway down page 3. Joel was asked why he recommends approval. Joel answered that the parking issues raised by law enforcement and fire department would be easier to deal with as the business would operate late in the evening. Do we have any clarification there? I know I'm just kind of
I think you're on
that at you.
Are you on the end January minutes, which we approved, better for worse, approved during the February 3rd meeting? My comment on the February 3rd.
All right.
Yeah, you weren't there.
Yep, I was on.
And my comment is that in the adjourned minutes, as Chairman Jeff Smith asked for a motion, probably was me as the secretary. I don't remember, but Jeff was definitely not here.
Anything else on the February? Lost track of the month.
We did. We were on this.
All right. Motion to approve.
Actually, I'm sorry. The February 3rd meeting minutes reference the next regular meeting as February 3rd, and it's March. So just need a correction. Pending that correction, motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Next item.
Okay, the next item is the public comment portion of the meeting.
Okay, as indicated in the introduction, if there's anyone here that cares to comment on an item not on the agenda, this would be your opportunity. Anyone online? Okay, next item.
The next item is the public hearing. First item on the public hearing docket is 25 PC 02-8772 Big Bend Boulevard in the Crossroads Business District. An application by Betty Bear for a conditional use permit to operate a banquet facility use and a coffee shop use in an existing multi-tenant planned commercial district.
All right, so, as you can see in the staff report that I presented to you, I'm gonna pull it up here as well on Google Maps. I'll just pop it over here so that way we can all see it. Yeah. And then I'll also open up my staff report just to have that open. Or actually, we'll do the submitted plans. Okay. So Betty and Matt Bayer of Betty's Books have filed a petition for a conditional use permit to operate an event space / banquet facility use located in an existing structure at 8772 through 8776 Big Bend Boulevard, as well as a conditional use permit to operate a coffee shop at the same location. The subject property is located in a PC planned commercial district. They are, the requested action for the Plan Commission is to review the application for a conditional use permit and make recommendations to the City Council. A public hearing before the City Council is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. The applicant would like to operate a bookstore, retail sales establishment, no drive-through, coffee shop, event space or banquet facility. A retail establishment, no drive-through is permitted within ordinance 9222. So a bit of the land use and zoning history of the subject site. The requested project is located within the Crossroads Planned Commercial District. On the city's earliest zoning maps from 1923, all the subject properties were zoned industrial. Later in 1930, the subject properties had two zoning classifications. The northern half fronting Big Bend Boulevard was zoned C commercial, while the southern half fronting what is now the vacant Union Ave was zoned E industrial. The zoning pattern applied a number of properties adjacent to the Burlington Northern Santa Fe rail line. In 1993, the area located in the former lot of 8780 Big Bend Boulevard was rezoned from E industrial to C commercial via ordinance number 7793. That lot extended along the railroad in the southern portion of the property. In 1999, the city initiated a rezoning for all the subject properties. The proposal was to undertake the following: vacate Union Ave, develop a public parking lot behind 8730 through 8778 Big Bend Boulevard, build a new building at 8780 Big Bend Boulevard, brought up to the street, build a new building and parking lot at 8720 Big Bend Boulevard with a landscaped plaza on the corner of at Elm Ave. The ordinance that was approved at the time had very specific regulations on the new development proposed, as well as the development of the public parking lot. In 2023, the Director of Planning and Development initiated a recommendation to the City Council at a public hearing to repeal Ordinance 8099. All right, so land use and zoning of the surrounding properties. So to the north, the properties directly to the north are zoned as C commercial and planned commercial, PC, and a mix of retail and office uses. The property to the south is the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad and Interstate 44. The property to the east is zoned C commercial and contains office uses and a parking lot. And to the west, the property is zoned as C commercial district and contains a retail business. I provided a screenshot of the 2022 zoning map and the 2024 aerial photograph in which I outlined those properties. So we can follow along together. But yeah, we'll just keep them. All right, so the comprehensive plan analysis. The comprehensive plan identifies the subject site as being within an area designated as a commercial in interest. The current development plan maps were adopted in 2006, also identifies the area as commercial in interest. The proposed use of the banquet facility, coffee shop, and it shouldn't be library, it should be bookstore. Uses are consistent with the commercial use designation identified. Alright. So staff analysis. In terms of zoning, the planned commercial districts are governed by zoning code section 53.280 and the specific ordinance created within the district, ordinance number 8099. However, the ordinance that governs the Crossroads Planned Commercial District was repealed and replaced by ordinance number 9222. That ordinance has determined the use code for the district to be aligned with D, which requires a conditional use permit for 2 of the above requested uses. The uses being requested are the planned commercial district allows for uses to be requested from the D commercial district, and the permitted and conditional uses are now in a chart under section 53.159 of the city code. Parking. So per section 53.112, off-street parking and unloading requirements and setbacks for parking areas, loading spaces, and internal drives are set forth in section 53.180 of the City of Webster Groves Code. The minimum number of off-street parking spaces required for permitted and conditional uses are found in section 53.186. In 1999, a new public parking lot was established through the consolidation of portions of the lots at 8730 through 8772 Big Bend Boulevard and the vacation of a road, Union Avenue, that used to bisect the subject properties. The public lot also provides access to privately accessed assigned spaces for 8720 through 8772 Big Bend Boulevard. The minimum requirements for each of those developments has been included in ordinance number 9222. The city has adopted a parking code for all uses within the city. According to the submitted plans, the occupancy load for the building is 135 people. Employees on the maximum shift will not exceed 4, which leaves 131 occupants. A maximum of 105 occupants are listed by the architect to be permitted within the space. However, the real use expectation by the applicant is that the event space will seat about 50 people and leave some room for standing on the stage. Parking code, section 53.186, a bank facility requires 1 parking space for every 3 seats, plus 2 spaces for every 3 employees on the maximum shift. With 50 expected seats and 4 max employees, that would mean that the event space would need approximately 19 spots. For retail sales establishment, a coffee shop with no drive-through and office space, 1 parking space for each 300 square foot of commercial floor space is needed. With 2,293 square feet of commercial space, they need to have approximately 8 parking spaces. For the whole building and its uses, they should expect to use about 27 parking spaces on their most full event during the day at peak shift and operation according to the applicant's numbers. According to their plans, they have dedicated 4 spaces. They have 4 spaces dedicated to them, and then the back part of the parking lot is public 2-hour parking. Given that the lot is only allows for 2-hour limits, this could potentially present a challenge if they plan on hosting an event for more than 2 hours. Although unlikely, if they do have an event at full capacity and the rest of the building is at full capacity, then they could present a real challenge for parking. This should not impact traffic, though, as the parking lot has multiple entrances and exits and is in the rear of the building. One potential solution would be to limit the amount of parking that they can use, that can be used by the location as to not impact the other businesses. Final occupancy load will be determined through inspections during the business license application process. In terms of traffic, the subject property is located along Big Bend Road, which has peak morning and evening through traffic for commuters. The transfer of the property from one business to another is not expected to have a significant impact on existing traffic patterns. All parking is also in the rear. Tree preservation and landscape. The applicant is not proposing an expansion or modification of the existing structure on the outside and therefore is not subject to the requirements of the city trees and landscape ordinance. At this time, if the applicant were to propose changes to the site plan, all requirements of the city tree and landscape ordinance would apply. It would be reviewed during the building permit review process. For performance standards, the D commercial zoning district there are a series of performance standards to address concerns for uses within the district. Noise is the most important, related to the adjacent residential. Per section 53114B, the maximum volume of sound or noise generated cannot exceed 60 decibels at any point on the lot line of the lot on which the use is located on Mondays through Fridays through hours of 7 through 8 p.m. Local time on Saturdays between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. local time, and on Sundays between hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p. and 7 p.m. local time. The maximum volume of sounds or noises generated cannot exceed 55 decibels at any point in time on the lot on which the use is for all other hours not listed above. The hours of operation, the applicant has requested to operate the coffee shop and retail bookstore between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. She has requested to operate the event space between the hours of 9 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. The plans were distributed to the building commissioner, police and fire, and public works. There were no comments from any of the other departments. Further, staff and all departments will review any plans during the business license permit review process to verify compliance with the municipal code and site-specific ordinance. The staff recommends approval of the requested conditional use permit as submitted per section 53173A. The council shall determine whether or not the request uses will not, one, substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, substantially increase fire hazards, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, adversely affect the general welfare of the community, or overtax public utilities. The application for the conditional use permit shall be denied if the council finds that the applicant has failed to carry its burden of proof with regard to any of the factors set forth above. Should the Plan Commission recommend approval of the conditional use permit to the City Council, staff would recommend the following conditions. One, all provisions of City Code and Ordinance Number 9222 shall apply except as expressly modified in this ordinance. The approved use shall be for a banquet facility, coffee shop, retail bookstore with office space. The hours of operation for the coffee shop and retail bookstore between the hours of 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Hours of operation for the bank facility, event space between the hours of 9 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. The section number 4, section 53.144, the performance standards shall be followed in their entirety. The number 5, the business owner shall be responsible for all pickup of litter and trash related to their business and above approved uses on the property and neighboring properties on a daily basis. The area immediately around the buildings dumpsters shall at all times be free of trash, debris, and oil waste, with all trash and waste being placed inside the appropriate dumpsters and appropriate containers. And 6, the conditional use permit shall be personal to the applicant, shall not run with the land. So the action on this item shall be one of the following forms of a motion to approve conditions, or denial. If the motion is for approval, the Plan Commission shall find that the 5 factors for approval of a conditional use permit are met. The recommendation of the Plan Commission will be forwarded to the City Council. And again, a public hearing for the conditional use permit before City Council is tentatively scheduled for April 1st, 2025, following recommendation of the Plan Commission. I have attached in there the submitted plans, the ordinance, and then also the staff report you have in front of you. Thank you for bearing with me.
So is the bookstore already a permitted use?
Yes, correct. With retail establishment, no drive-through, it's permitted use.
Okay, but you just included it in under the conditional use.
I just
permit.
wanted to make you aware that she was going to use it for more than just the banquet facility space and the coffee shop.
Sorry. I'm so excited about this and I know Betty and so this is like amazing. So yeah, I can't wait for her to like come up and talk. I don't have any questions.
There's some questions about parking, a number of spaces. Where would, in the event there's overflow,
Yeah, so
where's the nearest city lot here?
there's public parking throughout the whole back part of the lot. It is, I thought I included the number. I think there's somewhere in the range of like 30 to 60 parking spaces, but outside of that, it is kind of a tough space to park. I mean, because it's at that corner right before the rail station.
Mhm.
So if there is concern with parking, my recommendation was that we could limit the amount. I mean, it's also 2-hour parking, so there could be a challenge with that as well.
Joel, did you see that Mike has his hand up?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I did see that. Commissioner Butcher?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Could you scroll down to like page 7 there where you're at? The second floor plan? I think it's page 7.
Let me know if I
One
can.
more. Yeah, right there, right there. Go.
All right.
So that's labeled tenant 1. So are there going to be 2 tenants in this building, and does that have a separate entry then? Or I was just confused because I saw the tenant 1 in the handout.
Yeah, it does look like there is a separate entry. At this time, she is not planning on using that anything outside of her her actual bookstore office space, because we did have a conversation about this saying tenant on it. So I can definitely have her resubmit the plans with that. Also, if she were to rent it out, they can use it for office space. Also, I think it would hit incidental as well, with 40% of the being less than 40% of the floor space. But yes, I did have a conversation with her about this, and she indicated that she is actually not intending to use that for office space at this point, outside of her business.
So she could sublet that?
I think there is a potential that she could down the road apply for, or she could have a person move in there. If they are moving in that and they don't meet one of the permitted uses, they would have to apply for a conditional use permit as well.
So what you've got now, would that allow her to sublet it? Or would she have to come back for something to sublet it?
No, any person that would want to use that space would then have to apply for their own business license, and if they're not a permitted use, would have to apply for a conditional use permit or a variance or whatever they need to do to meet that use.
But Mike, the whatever tenant number 1 is or anything else, it's not part of our purview tonight. We're dealing with event space and or a coffee shop space. And so again, if she owns the property and wants to sublet some of it, there will be a review process, but outside of what we're doing tonight.
Okay, so just half of that second floor is going to be Betty's.
I think she plans on using all of it for right now, but there's a potential that down the road she could change her mind and decide to sublet it, in which case they would need to follow that, whatever process they need to be able to use that space.
And that would have to come back.
Correct, yeah, but it wouldn't be Betty, it would be whoever is moving into that space, if not a permitted use.
But she's the owner of
Thanks.
the building, right? She's.
Correct, yeah.
Right, okay.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, so, well, then just one other question. I guess there's the Betty's Books up the street there towards Old Orchard. Is that moving here,
That is
or is
my,
that a different thing?
that is the same Betty's Books. It's my understanding that she would be moving to this new location, but I mean, it's all within her ability to operate 2 locations if she were to choose to.
Okay, so, and I mean, that's certainly her right and all that. And I don't even mean to question that at all. I would just, within that context, I would just ask the question if there's ever been any issues with her working at that site that you'd want to keep in mind here. I've never heard anything like that, but I just think whenever something like that, it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I have not heard any complaints about her current location.
Okay, well, we'll hear from the applicant here in a second, so. Anything else for staff? Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hello, I'm Betty Bayer, and thank you to everyone who came out tonight. Really appreciate it. I am the owner and operator of Betty's Books. And yes, indeed, we do have a current location in the Old Orchard Business District. We're at 10 Summit Avenue, which is right near Cyrano's, if any of you have never been in the shop before. We are a specialty independent bookstore. We sell comics, graphic novels, manga, which are Japanese comics, in case you don't know that, and children's books. So I have been lucky enough, myself and my husband, to purchase this building in the Crossroads District. So I am the owner of the building, and it does need a lot of love, but it's definitely was purchased with the intention that it could become the new site of Betty's Books and allow us to kind of grow into what we've become. Which seems really crazy, but it is happening. And the idea behind the 2 uses that we're applying for is that both the banquet hall and the coffee shop, no drive-through, would allow us to be a destination type store. So folks love coming into our shop, but we are a specialty store. So being able to draw people not only from Webster, but all around the St. Louis area is very important to our business succeeding. And events have become one of the things that are very fulfilling for building community, but also very successful for our business. So being able to expand those offerings in this new space with the banquet hall use is very important. And examples of events we host are book clubs, author events, artist workshops, children's story times. We've had some children's birthday parties, actually quite a few. And we also have some larger scale events like on Free Comic Book Day and Independent Bookstore Day. Those are celebrating, the types of books we sell and reading. But yeah, it would just allow us to expand those offerings and also have an additional revenue stream. The other part is the coffee shop, and it will be very modest, but we will have like a small espresso program and coffee and tea and things like that. And again, it just creates that opportunity when you come into a bookstore, you can enjoy a coffee or a hot chocolate or a tea and walk around browsing the books, maybe attend an event. And it will just make Betty's Books a place that's even more special to visit and even more of a place people want to go more often. So both of those uses will allow us to fulfill like our mission. We're a very mission-based store and we want to build community in Webster and St. Louis more widely, but also it will help us help our business succeed in the long term. We need those additional revenue streams. And so we're also very excited about the location in Crossroads. I think we're a perfect fit for that area. And there's just really exciting things happening there right now. And I think we can really add to that. So, and I did want to address one thing about the parking, which most of our events are on the weekend, or in the evenings. And the businesses that surround us, especially who use that lot, are mostly offices. So they won't really be operating at the times that might be the busiest for us. Thank you so much for your time and considering our application. We're really excited, and thanks again. Let me know if you have any questions.
What time does the 2-hour parking end? Is it all day or is it like 1 to 5 or whatever?
That's actually a really good question.
I don't
have the
know.
answer
The
for.
sign just says 2-hour
Yeah.
parking. It doesn't
Oh.
have a time on it,
Eh.
but that is a really good question.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not enforced. that
After like
picture.
5 o'clock or something? Okay, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably for our executive session, but we have referenced that public parking for several recent community use permits. So it's just something that we need to make sure is planned for because everybody can't use the same parking, right? To justify businesses using the parking at the same time. Eventually, the numbers just won't work. But I think that we can probably figure that out.
I guess on that note, how many, when you have events, what's the, is it 50 people?
So hopefully, again, in the new space, some of the events will be bigger because we'll have a bigger space, but that event space really will only comfortably fit 50 people. And most of the events we host are more like 20 to 25. So that would be really great if it was 50, but yeah.
Anything else? Online? Commissioners online?
As a reminder, if you do have a comment online, you need to raise your hand.
I do have a question for staff. Is the Crossroads improvement to Big Bend itself going to add parking spaces?
I don't know about the improvements that are happening to Big Bend in terms of the adding parking space. don't
Okay,
have
I
that
know that
answer.
there's some St. Louis County Webster Groves road improvements planned, and I believe part of that is doing bump outs. I thought they were going to add parking spaces, but I don't know the numbers. It might just be something good for us to know as we've had so many new businesses open in that district, and parking will just become a natural topic for us.
Yeah, I sent it to Public Works. I didn't receive any comment back from them. But in terms of the work that's happening on Big Bend Boulevard, I actually don't have that answer. So, but I can check.
Please. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone care to comment other than by applauding?
We do have 2 cards.
Okay.
Betty's books.
That's Betty's also. Okay. Julia Learvig. I can see your address here, but state it for the record. And
Yes, my name is Julia Lenig. I own a business at 8715 Big Bend. It is a retail establishment in the Crossroads District. I also have my son here who is a very big fan of Betty's books. I also am the vice chair of the Business Development Commission and serve on the Crossroads District Board. So I offer a unique perspective to this particular situation. I also know Betty very well. She also serves on the Business Development Commission. I'm mostly here to vouch for Betty's character. I've probably never met somebody as responsible and rule following in my time as a business owner. Also, and as a Crossroads business owner, we have been seeking more retail. This would be such a good fit, especially with the other new businesses that have been coming in, which we love also, but a lot of them are restaurant. This would be a good retail addition. And yeah, Henry would like to say something as well.
all right, we'll give him 3 minutes if he wants.
Go ahead.
My name is Henry Lenig, and I like Betty's books because not a lot of bookstores have mangas, and it's nice to be able to read some mangas there.
Yep. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Jeff Sanders.
Hi, my name is Jeff Sanders. I own Argonne Development. We own the 8780 building. I have 7 tenants in that building. I do not personally occupy the building. I'm also on the Crossroads Committee for the district, so I'm well aware of what's going on and what's going on with the plan of St. Louis County. There will not be any additional parking spaces on Big Bend. There will be some bump outs and a lot more crosswalks and improvements there, but there will not be any additional parking spaces. I'm not opposed to the bookstore. I'm not opposed per se to the coffee shop, but I am absolutely opposed to the event space. We do not have the parking for that. The excess parking will end up in my lot as an overflow because that's where all the people are going to go that can't park on the Webster lot back there. There's only 12 spaces against the fence. You can see the 3 vehicles that are closest to the trash receptacles in the photograph there. Those belong to one of the businesses there. Those are there all the time, 24/7. Now they do leave during the day to go out and make routes, but they're there all night long. The other spaces on any given day, there may be 3 or 4 available spaces during the course of the day. I have tenants on the east side of my building that are therapy people that have patients into the evening. Edward Jones is on that side of the building, also has clients that come in during the evening. Webster Hearing is on the front side of the building on Big Bend. They also have retail people walking in. We'll be creating a lot more traffic coming through that entrance and exit line there. So it's going to be more of a safety issue for the people that are coming off the back of the lot from my property. So I'm sorry to throw cold water on it, but the parking issue is a big issue. You know, the weekends, not so much, but looking at the site plan, the other question is, there's no trash receptacles on the site plan. I would assume that a business like this is going to create a fair amount of trash. The trash receptacles that are on the upper end of the eastern end of the lot, I believe are used by the dentist, maybe some of the businesses that are on that end, but they're going to have their own trash to facilitate something out of this building, and I don't know where that's going to go. Or it's going to take up parking spaces on the building lot, on the Webster lot, because there's no place to go. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else that hasn't turned on in a speaker card? Anyone online? Okay. All right, please, name and
Thank you.
address.
Sure. My name is Zefwa Bromley. I'm owner of Acupuncture St. Louis and Wellness Center at 8748 through 54 Big Bend. And so I would like to reiterate the parking issue. It's a concern, especially during the day. Right now, we're often getting people who park from across the street, even though they're not supposed to. So as a basically therapy place, often it's hard for people to actually find a parking spot, even when we're full. Sometimes we'll actually have people park along the fence and get ticketed because sometimes they're in there for longer than 2 hours. So I do share those parking concerns. We do operate on the weekend, but typically it is more empty. But again, that's something to consider because even with very few offices now, pretty much that space is full almost every single day. And I have 5 parking spaces. So, I mean, I'm fortunate in that I do have adequate amounts of parking, but just to consider, that is a concern.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to anything that's been said?
Thank you. Yes. First of all, thank you for sharing those concerns. Obviously, you all are the ones there, so you know what it's like. So that's helpful just for me to hear too. I will say, as far as the trash concern, we won't have, again, we won't be serving food, or it's a very minimal coffee establishment, and we don't generate a ton of trash other than boxes. So we do have a pad, a concrete pad that isn't in a parking place where we can put our trash receptacles. So that shouldn't be an issue. But again, thank you for raising that. And I guess the only other thing I would say is that we don't anticipate on having these like huge events very often. Most of the events we hold now are considered as part of the retail bookstore use. They are like incidental use of being a bookstore. So the only reason we have added the banquet hall, the only reason we're asking for that is just to allow for us, again, to have the option to use that space for more creatively for different things. But yeah, so just to clarify that a little bit, but that's all. Thank you.
Any questions from staff specifically? Okay, thank you.
So I did want to add something that was brought
Sure.
to my attention. One, I wanted to point out that there is parking up here. I do want to also point out there is a concern with 2-hour parking with any event that's going to happen. There's that 2-hour limit that they're only allowed to be there. I know we're talking about whether that enforcement looks like, but I just want to make sure that kind of all the information is presented to you. So yes, so there is the parking. This is all public parking, and then this is also public parking. But then I think there is obviously still concern, and we can always set the requirements or the conditions for how many parking spaces in which they can use, or decide to not to approve that.
Sorry, are you highlighting on the image of what you're saying is public parking and what isn't? It's hard to see online.
Yeah, this here, I don't have a way.
Ooh, I can make it bigger. I just didn't know you were pointing at it. Okay. Do you mind just pointing it out again?
Hey, I'm gonna zoom in for you. So I've been told that this is also public parking.
Yeah.
Okay. I've not been there.
Okay.
20.
And and on that parking lot, which are public versus which are assigned?
I know from personal experience that this part right here, so up into where you see the pavement change, but I believe that public parking goes the whole back end.
Okay, so like the parking that butts to the buildings is specific to the use of each of those buildings, and then those that butt up to the street are public parking.
Correct. So in terms of off-street parking, which is what the requirements are in regards to, they have this dedicated spaces, and so all these spaces are here are dedicated to the businesses.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Good.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item. Or are we, is the other one's not?
The next item on the agenda is 25 PC 03 45 West Lockwood, Old Webster Business District. An application by the Webster Groves Presbyterian Church for a conditional use permit to operate a banquet facility use in the church located on a parcel in the D Commercial District.
Okay, so an application by the Webster Presbyterian Church for conditional use permit to operate a banquet facility use in the church located on the parcel D commercial district, as was stated. The space is already existing. They are changing it to add bathrooms and allow for renting out the space for events. They are also making some exterior changes that are not a part of the CUP application. The City Plan Commission is requested to review the application for a conditional use permit and make a recommendation to the City Council. A public hearing before the City Council is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. Land use and zoning history of the subject site. The 1.67 acre subject property is currently zoned D Commercial District. Webster Groves Presbyterian Church has served from this location since 1867. On the city's earliest zoning map from 1923, the southern half of the city block fronting Lockwood Ave was zoned D Commercial, while the northern half fronting Moody Ave was zoned E Industrial. I will just pull this up on this map so that way we can see it. Ooh. There we go. All right, sorry. In 1956, the entire city block was zoned D commercial. In 1959 through and 1961, the church was granted special use permits to reconstruct and expand its facilities. Since 1962, the church has operated daycare and early child care facilities at the subject property. In recent years, additional spaces have been leased out to others, not for other not-for-profits. The property is located in the Old Webster local and national historic districts. Photos of the property can be seen in the staff report that I submitted to you guys. A view looking at the church from the front. I mean, I also have it pulled up here so you can see it. Land use and zoning of surrounding properties. To the north, south, and west, the properties are zoned D commercial district. To the east, the property is zoned PC planned commercial district and D commercial district. Comprehensive plan analysis in 1978. The 1978 comprehensive plan is a guiding document of City of Webster Groves. It provided a roadmap for the city. The plan identifies the success of the city's commercial areas as necessary for maintaining their attractiveness and quality of life in Webster Groves. In 2006, the city commissioned the Development Foundation Plan and the subject properties, the plan, including the subject properties as, why am I getting confused on that? As public, institutional, and community use. The maps below present crop sections of the comprehensive plan. Let me pull that up just so we can see it. Here we go. The proposed request, sorry. Showing the Old Webster Commercial District and its surroundings. In 1978, comprehensive plan recommended public and semi-public use at the subject property, and in 2017 comprehensive plan map amendment recommends religious institution use at the subject property. The proposed request is not to change the zoning of the property, but rather to get approval of conditional use permit within the existing zoning district. It is staff's opinion that this would be in compliance with the existing comprehensive plan, as no change of zoning is proposed. Staffing analysis, in terms of zoning, the D commercial district regulations are contained in section 53.140. The regulations set forth in this section or set forth elsewhere in the zoning code when referred to in this section are the regulations in the D commercial district. Uses. The applicant has requested to allow activities which would fall under a banquet facility according to the city zoning code. The applicant intends to continue to operate uses as currently approved. However, they are seeking to build interior rooms to allow for events. Chapter 5.3 of our zoning code defines a banquet facility as a facility for hire, providing food service and or entertainment. The proposed event space would be rented out by the church, unlike previously in which it was not rented out. Per section 53.159, a banquet facility is a conditional use in the D commercial district. The requested use are further regulated by city code sections 53.171 through 174, which pertain to all conditional use permits. Sorry. I also want to note that in terms of uses, there are several tenants there. Well, actually, at this point, there's just a couple of tenants there. They have their own conditional use permits to be able to operate in the space, but they will presumably share the event space with those with the church as an entity in itself. But they're only permitted as their conditional use permits allow. Okay, so next is the parking. The zoning code requires a minimum of one off-street parking space for every three seats plus 2 spaces for every 3 employees on the maximum shift. The church does not expect any more than 1 employee will manage the space during events. Within the various event spaces at peak, they expect about 306 occupants. This means that they would need approximately 103 parking spaces. The subject property currently includes 82 off-street parking spaces, some of which are leased to the city for shared parking purposes within the Old Webster Business District. If they host a maximum occupant event, the parking will present a challenge for the area. Now, the event space has already existed in the building, but is now being developed further to be rented out. So this would suggest that they have enough parking for past events, However, if parking is a concern, then it would be staff's recommendation to limit the amount of parking allowed or incorporate bicycle parking. Hours of operation, the applicant has identified that the hours of operation will run Mondays through Fridays, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sundays, 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Staff recommends approval of these requested hours of operation. Performance standards, the D commercial district includes performance standards in the city code section 53.144, regulating levels of noise, vibration, odor, smoke, and other externalities of operations that may impact neighboring property. Staff does not recommend setting performance standards for the requested use beyond those already required in the D commercial district. Dimension regulations. The applicant has identified that they intend to operate the requested uses within the existing facilities at 45 West Lockwood Ave. Staff does not recommend placing any additional limitations upon the building height, setbacks, or floor area beyond those established in the D commercial district. The current plans regarding the external changes are to add a front trellis and dormer windows. So for context, let's see their plans. So these windows right here, these dormer windows are the like right along the top roof line, so you can get like kind of like a skylight-ish. And then this trellis part right here, which is currently grass. They want to put a little trellis and some brick down. So you can see here, there's none of that. All right, traffic. Given that the property has already used this space for church events and has had plenty of parking in the rear of the building, staff does not believe any modification will be needed to the existing parking facilities at 45 West Lockwood Ave or the means of access and circulation to within these facilities. However, there's always a concern with parking, especially with events and being rented out. Comments from other departments. There was only 2 comments from other departments. However, they don't necessarily impact the CUP. The comments were, one, just making sure that they know that any type of building code changes that they make, they're going to have to be at the building code standards. And then also, if they're removing this tree here, they'll have to follow the tree preservation plan or landscape plan. All right. Staff recommendation per section 53.173A, the council shall determine whether requested uses will not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, substantially increase fire hazards, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, adversely affect the general welfare of the community, or overtax public utilities. The application for conditional use permit shall be denied if the council finds that the applicant has failed to carry its burden of proof with regard to any of these factors set forth above. Staff recommends approval of the requested conditional use permit with following conditions. All provisions of the city code shall apply except for expressly modified in this ordinance. The approved use shall be a banquet facility. Hours of operation shall be limited from Mondays to Fridays, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sundays, 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Business owners shall be responsible for all pickup of litter and bank facility related trash on the property and neighboring properties on a daily basis. The area immediately around the property dumpsters shall be at all times be free of trash, debris, and oil waste, with all trash waste being placed inside the appropriate dumpsters in appropriate containers. The D commercial district dimension regulations shall apply to all uses, and the conditional use permit shall be personal to the applicant and shall not run with the land. Action on this item shall be in one of the following forms of a motion: to approve, approve with conditions, or denial. If the motion is for approval, Plan Commission shall find 5 factors of the approval conditionals the use permit are met. The recommendation of the Plan Commission will be forwarded onto City Council. And again, a public hearing for the conditional use permit before City Council is tentatively scheduled for April 1st, 2025, following a recommendation of the City Plan Commission. I have attached the applicant submitted plans, a CUP written statement, and the expected occupancy loads. Thank you again.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
There's also was a hand raise. You go with your question. I just want to make sure.
The question I have is, yeah, you mentioned we approved probably 2 years ago, a conditional use permit for the music school, or, but there was
Yeah, I think it's
educational thing. And I was reading through that staff report and at that time, they showed they had 92 parking spaces.
I did see that. I think I put 82 in mine because I think I counted and I came up with 10 short of what they put in, but I figured I'd rather be 82 and be conservative than say 92 and then get it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have, businesses and having people, but
Yeah.
again, we have parking issues in our,
Right.
in our downtown area, but, but I just noticed the discrepancy in those two. So we, you know, don't want to leave them short also. If there was an event, put it this way, if something was going on this campus, we would have a parking problem.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just a question that, and you agree, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there could be a real challenge with some of the occupant load. I would say that setting some type of parking requirements for the occupancy loads that they are expecting. I think that they have already been using this space. The space is getting kind of smaller because they're adding bathrooms and such to it. But I think that depending on the type of events they want to host, it could really present a challenge, especially for that area because it's kind of tight. They do have a decent amount of parking, but yeah, I think it could present a challenge. So I think setting a limit for how much spaces they can, or some guidelines, I guess, in terms of that. If we
Doesn't
can.
the back parking lot on the other side of Moody, so you said that they share those spaces. Remember, they had to share with the bank.
Yeah.
Remember when we approved of that bank and they had to make a parking agreement with the bank? I don't know how many parking spaces they,
The bank has been, was it a bank? It's been demolished,
no,
right?
the bank on the corner, the Chase Bank.
Oh, Chase,
with-
okay.
You know, they
The
own
parking lot
that
on that side, okay.
So they had to make it, in order for them, when they came in, they had to get a parking agreement in order to make their numbers. And some of those were on this lot, I believe,
Yeah.
on that back lot. So maybe that's the 10 spots that are missing.
That might be the 10 spots that are
Yeah.
missing, honestly. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you kind of talk about the D commercial and what the parking regulation is? Because
Yeah.
D commercial is kind of interesting because there's so much parking out in the whole area.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up so we can talk through it together because I'm not gonna pull that from memory. Pull it over for us all to look at together. D parking off-street parking requirements. Minimum spaces are found in this section. And then for banquet facility, so it's one for banquet facility in that D zoning district. It is one parking space for every 3 seats plus 2 spaces for every 3 employees on the maximum shift.
So is that how you got from 306 occupants to 103 parking spaces?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay. And where did that 306 come from?
Yeah, that's what they submitted. So here, I'll pull that up.
I feel like with the last 2 applications, one thing we're running into is we're essentially stacking CUP assumptions on top of each other.
Yeah.
Using the same parking. So there has to be like a comprehensive analysis of which spaces have already been charged against an existing CUP for us to do a fair assessment of whether or not the parking's adequate. Right now, you know, we're like thinking back, trying to remember what we've approved. And I really don't want to hold up these great businesses, but I also really don't want to create congestion or traffic issues. So in executive session, I think we're going to have to work that out.
Is there a requirement of proximity for public or for parking spaces to the use?
I believe so. For accessory parking, I know it has to be within 300 feet. So I don't have that answer off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
There was a hand raised online.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was mine, but I think the last speaker, whoever that was, you know, last meeting, we kind of had a similar thing. We were counting spaces down there at Leuclide Station, I believe, in Watson. Kind of running into the same thing here. So I think that last speaker kind of got onto what I was getting at. The other thing I want to get at was going to say shaded seating area there on the screen. I was trying to scale off, but I couldn't do it because there's like that little box, the tree planter. How much space is actually left on the sidewalk between the tree planter and the trellis? Because in some of the pictures it looked pretty narrow. You'd have to walk sideways through there. Is there sufficient space there? I had a hard time seeing it from what I was.
Yeah, so what I'll say is that that trellis area, it is within their setbacks, but that is currently is not something they're applying for conditional use permit for. And there's also some they had a preliminary ARB review of this, and which is a non-voting review. And they've also received some feedback about that space as well. So they're going to have to modify that anyways.
Hey.
Anything else for staff? Okay, the applicant like to speak?
And ran out, so. Brian Tobin. Good evening, I'm Brian Tobin. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees at Webster Groves Presbyterian Church. One of the things that obviously was brought up was the parking issue. Most of the events that we envision occurring in the redesigned space are in the evening hours, when the parking lot next to our church is virtually empty except for those people that are parking at Llewellyn's. The lot behind the church off of Moody is a 40 plus. Let me get the exact number. The Moody lot has 42 spaces. Our lot has 40 spaces, and there are an additional 7 spaces on the side next to the bank that are dedicated to the Webster Groves Church that we use for parking. So if I'm looking at correctly, there'll be 89 spaces, close to 90 spaces that are available for parking. As I said, the majority, we anticipate the majority of events that occur in the redesigned space to occur either on the weekends or in the evening hours. I guess it's called a banquet facility for lack of a better term, but we don't envision banquets. What we envision are continuing religious services like we have now, weddings, funerals, choral rehearsals, choral concerts, maybe book signings, those kind of things. There will not be any direct food service given at the church. If people want food, they have to cater it in. There will be a warming kitchen kind of thing that will be part of the chapel, but it will not be a food service facility. So we're not, and nor will it be an alcohol facility. So we're not going to be serving alcohol. We're not going to be seeking a liquor license. So if people want to bring their own things in, they'll have to get their own permits for those kind of activities. So, the basic reason we're doing this, and we've submitted this, and I would just briefly highlight the Webster Groves pamphlet that we provided, is, the existing chapel's been used for generations for weddings, funerals, music rehearsals, and so forth. But the chapel in recent time has gone kind of dark. It's not getting used very much for anything. And we envision ourselves as a mission-oriented church. We're reaching out to the community. And one of the ways we can reach out to the community is we have one of the best addresses in the community at 45 West Lockwood. And what better way to reach out to the community as a church than to open our church for the community to use. And that's kind of what formed the basis of this project and continues to drive the project now. So if there are any questions and if I can clarify this for anybody, I'd be glad to.
I do want to clarify, the area, there's a kitchen serving area that's noted on this site plan. I know you had mentioned about that sooner, so I just want to make sure that that is highlighted. That is an area that's going to be added as well.
That is in the process. And Mike, Helene, are you on?
He is on, yes, so I'm not sure what the
Our
process is for
architect,
that.
he was going to be on tonight. The serving kitchen, I think, has gone away.
Okay.
The catering kitchen across the hall for the Blue Chapel, you see the catering kitchen. Nope.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
That is remaining, but the catering kitchen is only going to have, it's not going to have anything other than counter space and sink. We've decided not to put in warming ovens and not to put in cooling facilities. One, they're expensive, and most caterers bring everything hot or cold anyhow. And so if somebody's going to have an event in the space and they have it catered, the caterers will bring the things in, they'll put them in that little room, they'll serve out of that room, they'll put back in that room and take it out from there.
And I also do want to point out that there is a catering permit that is required for any events that are hosted.
Right.
My question has to do with, so you're asking for the conditional use permit because you're renting out the spaces.
There will
If
be, that's exactly right.
If you were the sponsor, we wouldn't be here, right? You could have these events on your own.
Right.
Are you anticipating more rentals or more church use?
More church use.
And, okay, but it gives you options though, to rent the
It does give
space.
us options because again, we want to reach out to the community, and if somebody wanted to have a poetry reading or an open house or some type of function, it's an event space for that, but the majority of use is going to be church oriented as it is now.
Okay.
For instance, right now on Tuesday nights, the St. Louis Metro Singers, which is a community chorus, rehearse in the chapel. Once the event space is redesigned, they'll still rehearse in the chapel. We have a concert in that church the Sunday after Thanksgiving, but so those kind of things. We might have the Bach Society to come in if they want to use our space and have a reception and that kind of thing. But that's kind of the gist of it.
So when you have a function, when you have a wedding reception or things like that, what are the sizes that you're able to accommodate now?
What's that?
What size how many people do you accommodate during those
The
events?
number that we've discussed internally is up to a maximum of 150. people.
Okay.
Is that 150 for just, sorry, go ahead.
So does that kind of change? I don't know, what calculation were you using?
Right, so that-
150?
That's the question I have. Is that 150 for the whole building or for each? Because each individual space, as you on the things provided on the screen, provides an occupancy number. So they have 98 for that back space, 92 for the front space. 55,
Yeah, I would
and then
think that
61.
when I'm talking about an event, I would be talking about an event in the Woods Chapel area on the front side. I would doubt that we would have two events at the same time. I suppose it's possible, but I'm really talking more on the front side.
Okay, but so when you host one event, you could be using all the spaces and have a larger number.
You could.
Yeah, okay. So that's the calculation that I was using,
You
is
could.
that max number that if they were to use all of their spaces.
Okay, yeah, I just want to go over this when we have our discussion. So I just wanted to clarify that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay.
No, online.
There is a person online, Mike Lean, would like to speak, which is the architect.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
I'm so sorry. I have one question.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. I just saw the overflow space listed. Can you just give the use case for what the overflow space would be used for, since we're talking about the limitation on parking? I would assume that it's planned for numbers to exceed 92 attendees. What's the thought process behind the additional 61 person accommodation in the overflow space?
Go ahead,
Oh, what do you intend to use the overflow space for? Would that be used to make an event larger?
Right, right.
Okay.
I mean, these are currently the overflow space there's a parlor, a bride's and a bathroom that's on the bank side of the church. That would all be one large area, which would be, you could have a yoga class in there. And then the walls between the chapel and the overflow space and the chapel and the purple space, which is a conference room right now, those walls are stone and they will be changed to open glass sliding doors. So the entire space could be open for one event. So you could have a wedding, or you could have, for instance, a wedding in the chapel and the reception in the overflow space. And you could have an introduction area out in the purple space, and all off of the front doors at Lockwood.
Okay, thank you.
So it would seem just the way the layout that the remodeled event space, the golden, would be separate from the other three. I mean, it would be
Right.
unlikely that there's one event is occupying all those spaces.
Right.
Because they're separate.
Right now, and where you see the bathrooms and the storage room and the serving kitchen, which is kind of going to be taken out, that entire room right now is Fellowship Hall. And then, so after church on Sunday, that's where we gather. And now with this new space after church on Sunday, we'll be moving into the Woods Chapel area to gather for fellowship. And we'll have church meetings in there, and the things that we normally have in other parts of the building will be moved into the new event space area.
So we've reviewed a number of other CUPs for the building over the past couple of years. I know there's some, and Joel mentioned that there's some other uses of the building. But those are tenants, I'm assuming. Those aren't people that you have.
Yeah, completely separate.
Meaning their parking would be their own parking, right?
Right.
But as far as these spaces go, and there's 306 spots that we've contemplated here, these are all controlled by you, by your organization and the church. So if this commission wished it, so would you be willing to limit the building to one event at a time?
I suppose.
If we're talking about parking, right? The issue being if you've occupied or maxed out all of those four
Yeah, I
rooms.
suppose so. I mean, and there are occasional times where parking is, even on our end of Lockwood, is a problem because of, things going on down in the middle of Lockwood. People park on the, or something going on at Llewellyn's, or we have two things at the same time. So, yeah, I mean.
Sure. And the reason I bring that up is that the parking requirements, if there were 306 people who were present, it need to be 102 spots, 103 spots?
103.
And so if that number were limited to only one of these event spaces, meaning you're dropping off almost 100 people expected, then you're dropping off 50 spots that are required, and you've got that.
Yeah, I would be beyond our wildest dreams to have two events that had that many people at any one time. But if one of the conditions was to limit the event to one event and a maximum of 306 people, I think we could probably live with that. If that's the question.
One event to 208 people.
Okay.
Right, with the front, just the
front.
purple, blue, and green would be the maximum, or, yeah. Okay, just want to make sure we're
Understood.
talking the same numbers, okay.
If I could just ask a clarifying question, the main sanctuary is not part of this redesign, it's totally separate. So
Main
as we're
sanctuary is not
talking
being,
about parking, like that facility also needs parking as well, the main church. Right?
you could, I mean, the times that the main sanctuary would be in use are generally Sunday. And the people that are there in the main sanctuary on Sunday would then migrate to the Woods Chapel area for fellowship or classes or further events. If you had a wedding on Sunday, it would be in the afternoon. The main sanctuary would be dormant.
Okay, so there's not like really a scenario when the whole church, the sanctuary the 208 or however many places would all be full at the same
No,
time?
no, I can't imagine that happening.
I assume that's the 12 PM Sunday, the 12 to 10 AM
Right.
ask is post-church
So
service.
it's after church. Our church is at 9:30 and it usually runs an hour, and then we have post sanctuary things for classrooms, and everybody's gone usually by 11:30.
All right, so we also have Mike Colleen on if there's no more questions, but I have no more questions for him.
Yeah, would. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, the
you know me
architect.
too well.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Colleen, are unmuted, so you can speak.
Oh, good evening, everyone. I'm just here if you have any questions, any technical questions about the development. The one thing that came up about the trellis out front, we will, be building that within the setbacks. That rendering that you all saw was a little bit inaccurate, and that same came up at the ARB that it was a little tight to get past there. We will address that for sure. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'm here. Thanks.
Anything? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have cards for anyone? Okay, does anyone here care to speak on this application from the public? Online?
Again, as a reminder, if you do want to speak online, you need to raise your hand.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, plats and site plans. 24-PC-06, St. Louis Children's Hospital, KVC Mental Wellness Campus, 330 North Gore Avenue, final development plan. An application by KVC Behavior Healthcare Missouri Incorporated and St. Louis Children's Hospital for approval of a final development plan. I'm going to read it as it is, the 23.3 acre tract of land in the A3 10,000 square foot residence district. The following addresses, 330 North Gore.
Okay.
All right. So requested action, a final development plan shall be filed with the City Plan Commission for its approval without public hearing or further recommendation to the City Council. Oh. Okay. Sorry about that. Approval without public hearing or further recommendation to City Council within 12 months following the enactment of an ordinance rezoning the property affected thereby. Said final development plan shall conform with the preliminary development plan required under its section, and the Plan Commission shall have the discretion to approve minor changes in the development plan both before and after filing with the City Plan Commission, which are not inconsistent with the purpose or intent of the section without referring same to the council. That's per section 53.805A2 development plan. So land use and history of the subject site. I'm gonna go over it. In October of 2013, the City Council approved ordinance number 8811 which changed the zoning of the property to major educational campus district, MEC. A campus master plan was approved with the zoning in February of 2014. The cities of Rock Hill and Webster Groves moved the municipal boundary between two cities which had previously bisected the campus. Rock Hill adopted ordinance number 1785 and Webster Groves adopted number 8809 to officially move the boundary. Previous only 18.9 acres of the lot were located in Webster Groves. In March of 2014, the site development plan for a section of the campus was approved by the Plan Commission. The site development plan met the requirements in the MEC campus master plan. A second site development plan was approved in February of 2016. In 2025, the City Council approved ordinance number 9274, which amended the zoning district map from MEC, Major Educational Campus, to A3, 10,000 square foot residential district by revoking and repealing ordinance number 8811. It also approved a conditional use permit to operate an institution as described in the preliminary development plan and a conditional use permit to operate a hospital as described in the preliminary development plan. Land use and zoning of the surrounding properties. To the north, the properties are developed with single-family homes and are zoned A residential, Rock Hill. And then south, east, and west, the properties surrounding the campus are developed with single-family homes zoned A3, 10,000 square foot residence. Staff analysis, there are no differences between the development plan and the final development plan. One thing, there actually are two things to note. One thing to note is the preliminary development plan was submitted on June 3rd, 2024, and then revised in October 21st, 2024. The revision of the preliminary development plan were to the north and part of the south parking lot. A second thing to note is that the final development plan and the preliminary development plan, and this is going to be I will just touch on this. So the preliminary development plan and the final development plan have the setbacks at 40, but the ordinance that was passed with the preliminary development plan requires the setbacks to be 70 from the property line. So your page FDP C2, which should be included in each of your packets. Some of you, this was just added today, so some of you might have the X on your page, but that C2 update shows the setbacks at 70, and that's for the north, the east, and that little section past College and Home Ave. That's like southeast of the site at 70 feet. So you should see the line on FDPC2. Let me know if you don't have it, or if you don't know which I'm looking at. All right. Assuming that you all see it. So permitted accessory uses, the permitted uses were approved with a conditional use permit in section 2 and section 3 of the approved ordinance 9274 and are abided in the final development plan. So again, the setbacks, none of the setbacks are being changed from the approved preliminary development plan, except for that noted setback, which wasn't a difference in their buildings, but was a change in how they are recording it for their final development plan per the ordinance. So those setbacks are 60-foot yard setback shall be maintained along North Rock Hill Road, 200-foot front yard to be shall be maintained along North, that's Gore Ave, and then 30-foot front yard setback shall be maintained along Home Ave, and then 70-foot setbacks from all other property lines shall be for the rest of it, which are those three parts I pointed out. Parking, the parking seems unchanged when compared to the approved preliminary development plan. According to the conditions set forth in ordinance 9274, they need to maintain 319 parking spaces. And should any additional square footage be added in the future, all parking regulations will be met per the city code. There were no comments from other departments. The final development plan is exactly the same as the preliminary development plan with the movement of that one line. As this is a phased construction project with plans already approved by City Council, the following were the comments for the preliminary development plan, just so you have those. Staff recommendation, approval of the requested final development plan as submitted. Action on this item will be one of the following forms of a motion to approve with minor changes or denial. The attachments are the final development plan, the approved preliminary development plan, and then the council approved ordinance.
Point of order, should we have closed public session?
Close the public hearing. We didn't close the public hearing.
For the last one?
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out, was that we moved from public hearing to plats and plans. This is not a public hearing.
Yeah, we can close it now.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearings for, let's see, 25 PCO2 8772 Big Bend Boulevard Crossroads Business District And 25 PC 0345 West Lockwood, Old Webster Business District.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. So just, yeah, for those of you keeping track at home, no public comment on the plan discussion. Okay,
Excuse me, Mr. Smith. So you're saying we can't comment on anything that's presented in the final site plan from PVC?
During public comment.
So there was a public comment section at the beginning of the meeting in which the comments would be made.
Agenda items as they came up.
Yeah, for
Public hearing items.
public hearing items.
Sir, I would remind you, just like anybody else, if you would like to make a written comment and submit it to the commission, you can do so.
So you're saying no?
There was a public hearing portion of this meeting. The public hearing portion is now closed. Again, there has been public hearing on this matter in the past. And if you would like to submit something in writing, we will accept something in writing.
okay. Questions for staff?
I'm just, it's unclear to me, the parking on the, let's see, is that south side? I know, they're very small. I just am trying to understand how you access the parking on the south side of the lot facing Gore Avenue.
Facing Gore, what page are you just asking? Jen?
FBP, yeah, C2.
So you see the shaded extension of the storm sewer? You're just seeing the improvements of the existing drive. So if you follow that all the way, you'll see the curb cut coming off of I don't know what road that is.
Yeah, so there is. Oh, yeah.
Oh, comes up here.
Thank you.
Okay.
You kind of, I guess, I don't want to say skipped over, but moved over discussion of the other departments. Fire department stated Knox boxes, and the plan needs to incorporate perimeter access. So we confirmed that.
Yeah, so I did send this out to all of the departments and they had no comments because it was previously approved.
Stormwater will be addressed.
Yeah, so when they enter the building phase, yeah. Correct.
There were some changes at council that were, there were requests at council. Were those all taken into account also? The detention areas were supposed to be moved around or something like that. All of that was addressed in this plan, the change from the preliminary to this plan.
Yeah, so any of the requested changes that I was aware of was made. I think the only change was that parking lot when the revision happened in October. And then the setbacks as well. I'm not aware of any other changes that were made that weren't reflected in both the approved preliminary development plan and the final development plan before council.
Okay.
Online, no? All right, with the applicant, care to? George, I can't escape you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Councilmember Shepherd. For the record, I'm George Stock with Stock and Associates Consulting Engineers. I'm here this evening on behalf of St. Louis Children's Hospital, BJC, and KVC. Joining me is Ms. Trish Lolo, President of St. Louis Children's Hospital. I know KV's representatives are on the phone. We have our architectural team. We have our engineering team. We're here to answer any questions. I think what was presented is generally accurate. The one item that came up between the first and second council meeting was the restoration of the landscaping that had been disturbed at Bismarck and North Rock Hill. So that would be restored, and then an evergreen hedge along the front of the car parking. So that's really the change that this commission did not see in the preliminary development plan. That's been added to the final development plans, more landscaping. Happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question about the landscaping along North Rock Hill Road. Is that intended to shield from lights, parking? I know there's residents right across the street, and those folks had expressed concern with increased traffic right across from their personal residence.
Exactly. So the shaded parking lot you see there, there's parking spaces that do face west. So we wanted a combination of retaining wall, evergreen hedge that was above the parking spaces to shield, screen any headlights that may occur.
Excellent, thank you.
I feel like we should cover it since you're all here, but
We're ready. We can also sit down.
I'm just curious, it's not really something that is important to the next step on this, but what are there's limited parking with a separate entrance and exit on that south side of the property on North Gore. Is that for the physicians, or what is that intended for?
Well, there is no parking on North Gore. So you have to come up College Avenue. You're going north on College Avenue. There it is right there. So that's like, there's the cursor. So that's College Avenue. And so basically the southernmost parking lot comes in the drive. Who's ever driving that cursor for me? Is that you, Joel? Yeah. So that drive, so that is off home. That is not off.
Yeah, I know. I was just referencing, I know you have to go up Home Avenue to get to it, but it looks like a very limited number of spaces. Who would park there? Because it's so limited. How would the intended people who are supposed to park there know to park there?
That's
Because the
staff. That's staff that's
Staff,
using that parking.
thank you.
lot. There
That's what I'm looking for.
Correct.
That's all the pepper I've
Okay.
got.
All right. Thank you.
And just to clarify, this doesn't go to council, we approve it, this is done, correct?
That is correct. And yes, there is already an ordinance with it.
I believe did it go to ARB prior, like last week, or it went to
They-
ARB and then came here?
Well, so it went to ARB as a preliminary. They didn't get a vote
Okay.
on it. So they
So-
just looked at it, gave some feedback. And that's it.
So they never vote on it, doesn't like.
Correct. Yeah, they won't be able to vote on it until after
do
we
preliminary
approve it
management,
here.
so it's done.
Cycle.
Okay. Very good.
Motion to adjourn. Regular session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, executive session. Secretary.
One at a time.
All right, making sure. Okay, the first item up in the executive session is 25-PCO2 8772 Big Bend Boulevard, Crossroads Business District. An application by Betty Bear for a conditional use permit to operate a banquet facility use and a coffee shop use in an existing multi-tenant planned commercial district.
Okay. Discussion.
We had the same, the same conversations about parking. And we had this discussion when Off Elm came in a couple of months ago, or 6 months ago. It doesn't appear to be a problem with them. I don't think this is going to interact, evening, which I think we're most concerned with evening use, which I guess, I don't see parking even in that part of the evening as being, there's still off-street parking. There's the parking lot behind, there's the parking lot off of Alma. If that was my only, that's my only concern, that's not a big concern to me.
I have some concerns with the parking, mostly because I know Serendipity is right across the street and has extended their hours. Likewise, Big Ol' Union is pretty busy. And then Off Elm, I don't think is really concerning with the hours here. But hearing from the tenants and owners of existing businesses and knowing that we've had those two come in as well, I think it would be nice to have an overall assessment of the parking requirements for all of those new businesses and what's available as like a comprehensive look. I don't know that it's fair to hold that against Betty's Books specifically, because I don't think we've done that up to this point, but I think it's a best practice we should implement moving forward, because we're not considering previous approvals that have factored public spots into their analysis. And at some point, we are going to have people parking down Alma Avenue, taking residential homeowner spots. And then we kind of run into problems we've seen with other very successful businesses that are in a residential area with limited parking. So I am concerned. I'm not sure if that should be a condition of this or not, but I think we should talk about it.
I think we're also underplaying foot traffic along this part of Big Bend also. For all of the businesses, there's the potential for more people walking to this business or this establishment, just like the ice cream store and things like that too, so.
Yeah, it's great. I think that's the intention, is hopefully people come to the area and park for a while and do shopping in the whole area, which would be ideal. And we want them to have a place to park and also keep the business district and the residential district harmonious.
Yeah, I like your statement, Grace. I mean, I think we risk being inconsistent in how we apply these decisions without a full picture. There's judgment in everything we do, but we should try to be as consistent as possible so people know what to expect.
In terms of like parking spaces, or what exactly? What do you mean? Like,
Well, yes, yeah.
okay,
Yeah, the parking, I mean, yes, it should apply broadly, but in terms of parking.
yeah.
We can, and that's a judgment we make, but we can find outs or reasons to determine that it's okay, and we should apply those kinds of reasoning instances and have the big picture.
I just think this district is new. I mean, we've done parking studies in Old Orchard. We've done parking studies in, Old Webster, because that's where the traffic was. So it's a good problem to have, but I agree. I think since it is becoming a popular place, maybe we start, a discussion about parking study in this area too.
But you can park on the residential streets, right? I mean,
Yeah, they're public streets.
right. So I don't know. For like the 10 years that I've been on this, I feel like we talk about parking, like so much in depth. And I don't know, I'm not opposed to walking. And if I have to park on one of these residential streets, that's not a big deal to me. And also I feel like Betty is not going to choose a place to have her like move her business if she thinks people aren't going to find a parking space. I don't know, like
Yeah.
that, like that's, if people aren't going to come, then it's not going to be successful, and she's going to want to have it be successful. So I don't know. I'm not as concerned. I mean, I get it. I totally get it. It's just annoying. But then if I can't feel like I don't find parking, I'm just not going to come. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to some of your concerns, a parking study is always helpful to know. I will say this is a planned commercial district, so presumably when they made the planned commercial district, they had done some type of parking analysis for these buildings. But in terms of what is required by the code, it is specific in terms of off-street parking, so not necessarily on-street parking, which is always permitted, well, in certain areas.
Everyone should get golf carts. I mean,
That's right.
Yeah. No, I'm good at my golf cart.
On Big Bend in that section, there is on-street parking. Do you recall, is it limited to a certain time of day? I think it is. Opposite days.
Oh, sorry. For the on-street parking, I don't think there is too much right in front of the business because I think those are roads. So
I'll weigh in. So the south side of the street has a no parking during rush hour. I
Rush
believe it's
hour,
the evening
yeah.
rush to maintain the right-hand turn. It's the same thing in Old Orchard.
Yeah.
It's not enforced. It's never enforced. Yeah. So in that point, I would say that like those practically work as parking spaces. And then I did take the time to look up the St. Louis County Department of Transportation website. The current striping plan that they have shows a bump out and curb cut immediately in front of this location, as well as parking between those bump outs. So it would appear, unless St. Louis County has changed their plans and has not updated it on the website, there would be additional on-street, or excuse me, yes, on-street parking.
And that reduces the traffic flow to single lanes.
In both
for
directions.
Up until the turn lanes, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that provides a little, I know we can't factor it in, but here's my thing. Our charge is, does this substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion? And so I'm trying to look at it holistically, but to be honest with you, I don't think that we have the data that's really needed to look at it that way. So it's like, okay, how do we go back and assess this the same way we've assessed everything else without putting ourselves in a bad situation where ultimately our answer does increase traffic hazards and congestion for the sake of the business and for the sake of, the residents. So that's what I'm working through. It sounds like that's going to be positive and add additional protected space for customers to get in and out of these businesses. And maybe that's enough for now, but I would request we do some kind of analysis for this area moving forward.
Sorry, Commissioner Booster, did you also have your hand up? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna unmute you. You're good to go.
Yeah. As far as this discussion, one speaker had said something about he's all good except for that event space, if I heard right. And, or the banquet space, I believe was what was said. So I don't know if, and I'd agree with a lot of what was said about the traffic. It's a good problem. If there's a question maybe to Betty Books, if they'd be agreeable to limit that event space to weekends or the off hours, that when it would help with the traffic. So I don't know if that's something for when I ask the applicant. And again, that's if I heard the stuff right.
Yeah, I do believe the gentleman said that he was okay with the coffee shop and the retail bookstore. That his one concern was the event space. And I'm not sure, I would confer to city attorney as to whether or not we can limit to the hours of the event space to just the weekends.
Yeah, well, part of why a banquet hall requires a conditional use permit is for consideration of things like traffic and when hours of operation could be to best suit the traffic in the area. So that is a power you guys have.
I mean, I think this business area is going to be busy on the weekends. I don't think that's like a solution. I'm very torn. I think if we use the same logic we've used up to this point, then we should approve it. But and that's what I'm leaning towards personally, but I don't think that that is the right answer for our holistic view and our larger charge in accordance with the comprehensive plan. So how do we get to a place where we've got enough accommodations for patrons of businesses, residents of the area, and the opportunity for everyone to thrive? That's where I think it gets really complicated. And maybe there is no easy answer here, and we just have to make the best decision we can and then work on plans for expansion as everybody grows and succeeds into the future in a better analysis.
I mean, I would hate to postpone the decision multiple months, and I don't think we could have meaningful data in 4 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometime.
I guess, is there, and I'm not saying I'm in favor of this, but is there an option to approve 2 conditions, 2 uses, and postpone the third?
Yes, absolutely. There's, yes.
I guess I look at it this way. It's a bookstore, and yes, it's asking for a banquet facility because that's what our definitions in our code ask for. But to me, this isn't a banquet facility. And, you know, to think that there's going to be, like the church, 150 people or something there, I just think that's the wrong impression, that that's what this use is going to maintain. So, you know, yes, we're approving a banquet facility because that's what our code,
It's into.
that's the vocabulary of it. But I don't have a problem with this using it as a coffee shop with birthday parties and, you know, book readings. That's my opinion.
I don't know if this is going to help Grace or not, but with the comprehensive plan, one of the things that they're looking at are the parking requirements. And are our parking requirements kind of right-sized? Are we asking for too many spaces, for not enough spaces? So maybe after we have that comprehensive plan finalized, that might be something to look at, that longer term
definitions.
project and definitions, that longer term
Yeah.
project. So it might even change the target, you know?
Totally. And like I said, I don't think we should hold this against this application, but it's a reoccurring issue for us. And we're not doing a comprehensive analysis of it right now, so it's problematic. I don't have a issue with the terminology. I'm just looking at the number of spaces anticipated, and it's 27 on a max day. So according to staff analysis, which is usually what we use and we have in the past, that's adequate. I have no problem with that for this application today, but into the future, I will have a problem because we can't keep reusing the same parking spots, or it's going to frustrate the business owners too, if people can't get into their appointments or come shop.
Yeah, and I think that a comprehensive parking study is definitely worthwhile, especially as we continue to grow and develop our areas. I will say that to Commissioner Smith's point, it is not something we necessarily have capacity internally to do, or if we do, it wouldn't be something that would happen by our next meeting, for sure. So.
Absolutely understand, right?
Well, I think I can read the room here, but yeah, any additional comments? No. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve PC or 25 PC 028772 Big Bend Boulevard, Crossroads Business District.
As written.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the hours or anything like that.
All right, we do need to do the factors. No.
Do we need a second? Get a second?
I guess we can take a second. We can take a second first.
Second.
Okay.
You got it?
So let's go
There we
factor by factor.
There we go.
There we go. Well, we could talk, so front and center, substantially increased traffic hazard or congestion.
I don't think so.
No.
It's hard to hear you. I think that you were saying,
Sorry.
stating the first factor, right?
Yeah, sorry, my mic was off.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
so, yeah, do we feel that would substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion?
No.
No.
Substantially increase fire hazards?
No.
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 Adversely affect the character of the neighborhood?
No.
Adversely affect general welfare of the community?
No.
No.
And overtax public utilities?
No.
No.
All right. We've assessed the factors. We have a motion and a second. We'll roll call. Annie,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Yes.
Connie. Chair votes yes.
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 Maddie,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, the next vote is 24-PC-0345 West Lockwood, Old Webster Business District, an application by the Webster Groves Presbyterian Church for a conditional use permit to operate a banquet facility use in the church located on a parcel in the D Commercial District.
Let's talk about parking.
It's the same concerns for me as before. That's maybe why I was so passionate in our first CUP, so I won't say everything again. I will say that I know there is sometimes an issue with parking. We all know there are multiple things running out of building. Some of that is very temporary. Pickups and drop-offs are a factor for this parking lot because they run a preschool and a early childhood facility. That is kind of the time I see this parking situation really being stressed, especially with what seems like daytime events that are non-weekend, like potentially yoga classes or such. But overall, I think that this church does a great job of deconflicting those things, and there's probably not going to be a substantial change to the stress on the existing parking. So I don't see it as a major issue now, but I still think we need to work on the analysis part.
Probably not pertinent, but I feel, you know, we, as much as this lot serves as overflow for other businesses and functions in the area, that I would be remiss to penalize them. There was a question of separation of the events between the main three spaces and the, I'll call it the back space. If that's something anyone has interest in, we can consider it. I just wanted to mention that was a possible out or mitigation factor for anyone that maybe feels conflicted against parking.
My thought on that one was, instead of telling them they can only use one facility or the other, is give them a people count. So that way, if they have 75 and 75, it would still be underneath whatever. I don't know what the number would be, but instead of just saying they can only have one event, is really not fair to them.
Yeah, so I think we can limit how many people. So I think that one thing I would say is that we would probably maybe fashion the language to say post, because there's going to be an occupant load once they start the building process. And so maybe we could just say whichever is less, the building code or the occupant load per building code or the number we set. Yeah, correct. The number we set.
Yes, when they're having a special event of some sort, the total number of people they're allowed to have in the building, so they can decide who goes to what.
And with the idea that it's limited based on the amount of parking available because the power comes from your consideration of traffic and congestion.
And would that be practical to enforce? Would be,
I mean,
enforced if there's a complaint?
It is enforceable, absolutely, yes.
Practically.
You know, there's lots of things that are practically or impractically enforceable, but it exists for a reason, right?
But usually the enforcement is in past tense.
Yeah.
So you go and you say,
Right.
how many people do you have in this one and how many people do you have in this one? And if they're,
Well, if it's Saturday afternoon.
they can
what
lose
do
their
they
CUP.
count?
Just on enforcement, and you can't hold their feet to the fire. But one thing I will say is, I think the CUPs we've seen come through here and the adjacent businesses, these folks are very good neighbors to each other. They have leased each other parking spaces. They overflow to each other's parking spots. So I have a lot of faith that that kind of relationship will continue. And I think we all want that, because who wants to go to a restaurant and see a sign that you're going to get towed if you can't park in an empty parking lot right next door? So I'm inclined to say, like, yes, like, we've got a good thing going here. The numbers work, except for these corner cases that are sort of extreme, and let's not force people to work against each other.
I agree. I mean, they're also not going to want to have their guests, people that come to their events, come out and have their car towed or whatever. And while it's not within the 300 feet, there's the parking garage is across the street. They won't be, whereas we were concerned about people parking in neighborhoods, we've got a parking garage. So again, and I don't envision it, and I didn't get from the applicant that they're envisioning events where there's going to be 200, 300 people.
That's probably- Right, at the same time, would probably be exceedingly rare. If,
And I also venture to guess that while it will be, I'm sure the goal is to have rentals, I imagine the church is going to be the majority user of those event spaces.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I had a question. I'm sorry. This is Mike. I had a question.
go ahead, Mike.
Just if I just want to make sure I heard right. And I think somebody said something about, like, if the church is having an event there, they don't need this because it's their property. Just when they're renting it out, they need it. Is
Right.
that right?
That is correct, yeah, because they were
Yeah.
already had this space, and it was actually bigger because they're adding in bathrooms and that and the serving space. So the space is actually getting smaller, but it existed before this as well.
Right.
So as long as they're using it for church events, it can count as incidental towards whatever the main purpose is. But yeah, when they rent it out, then that's when this really is important.
So if I had a church event on Friday night and 200 people show up, you're good to go. But if I have it on Saturday night and they rent it to me and 200 people show up, now we're having this parking discussion.
Well, I think it does get tricky, right? In terms of you're having an event, and does that event still require you to meet whatever parking spaces that are required under a banquet facility? But yeah, I mean, there's always that, which is part of the reason why I recommended that it would be approved, is because they have already been operating with this space for however many years. And then also they are still beholden to their occupancy loads per the building code. And they're going to have to do another building inspection and commercial inspection whenever they apply for their business license, and then also have their inspections for the build phase.
Thanks. I just want to make sure I heard that right. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Michael.
No, I just want to make sure I heard it right. I just said thanks. I'm sorry to interrupt you guys. Your vote.
They're kind of changing their business plan though, because they want it to be open. Up to this point, it seems like it was only the church functions. Now they're changing it to be open to other community members can come in. Right.
Revenue.
And just to absolutely pulverize this point, they already had to do the parking for their existing church activities, right? Okay, right. Okay, motion to approve.
Sure. We already had that, yeah. Okay. Moved and seconded. Let's go through the factors. Substantially increased traffic hazards or congestion.
No.
No. substantially increase fire hazards,
No.
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 adversely affect the character of the neighborhood,
No.
no,
No.
adversely affect the general welfare of the community,
No.
No.
and overtax public utilities.
No.
Okay, findings that are all in favor, we'll roll call again. Annie? Grace?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Jeff votes yes.
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 Mike?
Yes.
Maddie?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion approves. Next item.
The next item is 24-PC-06, St. Louis Children's Hospital KVC Mental Wellness Campus, 330 North Gore Avenue, Final Development Plan. An application by KVC Behavior Healthcare Missouri Incorporated and St. Louis Children's Hospital for approval of a final development plan at the 23.3 acre tract of land in the A3 10,000 square foot residence district, the following address, 330 North Gore.
Okay. Discussion here.
I'm fine with it. I think that the one guy that was upset was probably because of the lights. He was worried about the lighting. I think the ARB will probably take care of that part.
That's a performance standard too, so have to meet,
You
have to meet the codes.
Submit light calcs.
Well, I think that the parking lot location, but is a concern for some of those folks, but the retaining wall and the hedging that was discussed addresses that for me. So as long as that's fulfilled and it's in the approved plan, I think we've done our due diligence there. I do really appreciate that the plan did not change from when we held our meeting. So that makes today's discussion simple for me. There's not a lot to do analysis on because we've already considered the intent of this plan when we did our original meetings.
But I'm not sure that he was talking mostly about the car lights or if he was talking about the parking lot lights that illuminate, but I'm sure that'll be addressed.
A lighting issue too. I know at one of the sessions, Mr. Stock said that they would be, correct me if I'm wrong here, downward facing parking lot lights and that they would cut them to 50% after 10 PM. So I think that that will also help with some of the neighbors.
Okay. Maddie or Mike, any comments?
No.
Well, again, not, since it hasn't changed, I think this is kind of a procedural thing. So let's say go on with it.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
Oh, before that happens, I do want to also
All right.
point out that we had a resident submit a comment that I can forward to email to all of you. Further guidance.
Was that guy?
It was not that guy. It was no, it was from Debbie Deisenbach. And it was about regarding some points that she had made during the city council meeting that she didn't feel were addressed.
Okay, and what's her address? Just curious.
Her address. Ooh, that's a good question.
He lives on College.
Okay.
I mean, I
But
haven't seen the letter, but
Yeah.
before I before I vote on this, did it have anything to do with landscaping?
It did.
Locations of any, I mean, did it have anything to do with the plans that we're supposed to be making a recommendation on?
I don't believe it did, but I can read it if you'd like me to.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So. All right. Here we go. Dear Mayor Arnold, Mrs. People, Mr. Bruntrager, Mr. Pugh, Mr. Stock, and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I'm writing on behalf of the neighbors to request a meeting to receive a point-by-point status update of the various items, including the request and concessions document that our neighborhood group presented to you on Thursday, January 30th, 2025. See attachment. I can read over that once we get past this. With the Planning and Zoning Commission set to meet Monday, March 3rd, 2025 to discuss the final site plan for the SLCH KVC project. We're requesting to meet with you this week to ensure that we have a clear picture of where each item stands. Per Mayor Arnold, the only way our concession request can be held accountable by the responsible parties will be through designations in the CUP and the site plan, both of which were already approved. We are also requesting that the new KVC BJC SLCH neighborhood contact be included in this meeting as a way to introduce them to the neighbors and allow them to efficiently get up to speed on requests and concerns. While we appreciate the feedback that we have received so far from various individuals listed on the thread in regard to our request and concessions document, we'd like to receive a status update on each item in our document, and an in-person discussion would help us to more efficiently receive clear and concise status updates rather than receiving piecemeal updates at various times via email. Upon review of the CUP and site plan documents, the only item from our requests and concessions list that appears to be addressed is landscaping. It is alarming that more concerns from neighbors do not appear to have been taken into consideration with the CUP and site plan. If additional items have been considered, we would like to understand in what capacity they were reviewed. In addition, in the recent email from Mrs. Peoples regarding traffic and pedestrian safety concerns on neighborhood streets such as College Ave and Bacon Avenue, specific concerns are not addressed, including the monitoring and enforcement of speed and speed limits on neighborhood streets, and how to limit cut-through traffic from the new KVC BJC SLCH development on the surrounding neighborhood streets, how to enhance pedestrian safety in the area by adding sidewalks and crosswalks, as well as limitations to parking by non-residents, employees, and visitors, loitering by employees, as well as depositing of trash, cigarette butts, etc. Further email from George Stock to Mayor Arnold regarding the concerns raised by our neighborhood group does not address the majority of the items in our request and concessions document, and it lacks specifics on how the bulleted commitments made by KVC SLCH to the neighborhood will be implemented, monitored, and enforced, etc. There are also some statements in the email update from George Stock that are in direct conflict with what he stated to the group during our meeting on January 30th. For example, Mr. Stock mentions that in his email that the KVC SLCH will continue to be in contact with Webster Grove School District about the project. However, during our meeting, when Mr. Stock was asked directly and specifically about the communication between the project developers and the Webster Grove School District and Givens Elementary School, he stated that there had not been any communication between Webster Grove School District and KVC BJC SLCH. This seeming inconsistency raised additional questions of the transparency of the process and completeness of the information being relayed to neighbors. Finally, we want to ask again for a response as to whether KVC, BJC, SLCH have entered into any form of community benefit agreement to the city of Webster Groves outside of stakeholder groups impacted by the development. We look forward to hearing from regarding availability for the meeting this week. So it looks like the one concern that was addressed was the landscaping. For the specific bullets, there are 32 of them.
Okay.
No, please don't read
Do
them.
any of those, do any of
But-
those pertain to the ordinance requirements and the site development plan?
It does not seem as though. We have traffic
Under
and
our purview.
correct, yeah, and
The city manager did reply the next day to let her know that a meeting last week was not possible, but the city staff was reviewing and would get back to her. So I don't know that it impacts your ability to approve.
Well, yeah, I mean, my
Correct.
question is the plan that we have and the code that we're supposed to review and the ordinance we're supposed to, issues like the, traffic studies and all this, that's not what we're looking at right now.
yeah, so that is correct. Our purview for this meeting is specifically to make sure that the final development plan matches the preliminary development plan. And also, this is not a public hearing, so take that
Agreed.
with what you want.
Okay,
That's fine. All right. I just
thank you.
wanted to. Okay. Now, I don't think I had a motion yet.
I'll make a motion to approve 24 PC 06 SLCH KVC Mental Wellness Campus, 330 North Gore Avenue, final development plan.
Second, this Mike.
Thanks, Mike. All right, moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call here too. We'll start online. Mike,
Yes.
Maddie,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff, yes.
Tony, yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Annie? Okay. Motion passes.
All right, moving on to other business.
Do we need to address the recall or is that? Okay, that just, we don't need to do anything at all with it. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, moving on to the fiscal year 25 annual report of the Webster Groves Plan Commission.
All right, so this does not need a vote, but Commissioner Smith was very kind to type up all of his notes on it and basically to type it. And then I added some stuff per his request in terms of the numbers. So
Yeah.
just one last.
Can you pull that up?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Real
So
quick.
just one last look at it before it gets presented to council. Yeah, I'll pull it up here.
And let me state for the group here, I mean, it was largely a repeat of prior reports with a little updating and some additions to consider the comp plan and accessory uses. Something we need to remember to keep on our radar.
Oh, whoop, sorry about that. Wrong one.
Thanks for putting that together, Jeff. I did read it. I didn't have any questions.
All right, should be up now.
I mean, I don't want to pull it up. I don't want to read through it or anything.
Yeah,
Give
I mean,
folks a chance to
Right.
point out anything
Um,
specifically.
yeah, and so I believe my understanding is that then the chair will present this at whatever.
Yeah, we need to get it to Mayor Arnold, so either I can send it or you can send it to her and copy me by the 15th of this month, and then there'll be a scheduled meeting to present it with all the boards and commissions.
That's fine.
Is it okay for, I mean, I don't want to put that on you if you don't want to send it, but you can.
No, I'll
also
send it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I'm just-
Perfect.
Okay, I have
That's
a-
right, that's right.
I have a tiny thing just because you asked, but the
Yeah.
font size is different after the header section and,
Yeah, I
okay.
did change that when I printed it out
I know.
today. I
That's
noticed
like
that.
a really annoying thing, but
Yeah.
since you were looking for picky things.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Because I did also catch that as well. So I did change that on the printout that you guys have.
Okay,
But
cool.
yeah, I will change, or well, I guess, Jeff, if you're, Commissioner Smith, if you're sending it, then just want to make sure the font size is all, or the font type is all the same in size.
And as far as I know, the meeting hasn't been scheduled yet. I don't have a date for that.
Okay.
If you've heard one.
I don't think I can make it.
Yeah.
Is there
Well, Commissioner Hunt presents last year.
I think I'm gonna be gone.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll email Mayor, I'll CC you and Joel.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And thanks, Jeff, for taking the time to.
I have a couple other like
Make us look
quick
smart.
updates if you want me to, or we can, keep them quick. Comp plan should be, we expect the final draft the week of March 24th.
Hmm.
So that's coming up quickly, which is great. We've got a municipal election coming up in April. There are 2 charter amendments from the Charter Review Advisory Board on there. One is council compensation and one is adding in an article about public engagement. So 2 things there. Balancing Act is open if you want to make your voice heard on what you would like to happen with the city's budget. So that is out there. And I'm happy to share any of these links if you need help finding this stuff. And then I think that was it. Those are my quick updates. I
Thank you.
know it's been long.
Oh, I have
All right.
one last thing. This is Elliot Leibson, our new Director of Planning and Development.
Oh. Well, I thought you were just kind of hanging out there. All right. Well,
Yeah,
here's
because
the show. Yeah.
I like my leisure time to hang out at commission meetings.
Takes long.
So just, if you want, I could give you a little brief about myself.
5 minutes now.
Yeah,
Well,
give
here,
3 minutes.
No,
3 minutes. We'll give you 5.
This is my second go around with Webster Groves. I don't know if any of you were around when
You were on Board of Adjustment for a while, weren't you? Were you?
yes, I
Board of
was. I was my title was Economic Development Coordinator. I was also a planner between 2000 and 2004. And I've bounced around mostly in the St. Louis market, but I've done some work up in the Chicago area in planning and economic development for 30 years. I got my master's at SLU in planning and real estate and bachelor's at WashU, and I'm excited to be back. And, you know, that's really the long and the short of it. And if you guys have any questions,
Welcome.
thank you.
Just tell me your name again. I missed it at the beginning.
I'm sorry,
Your name again?
Elliot Leibson.
Elliot, nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah.
Let's see, in 2005, I was in Antioch, Illinois. So I was literally on the Cheddar Curtain, for those of you who know. Then I was in Libertyville. I was a Main Street director. I went to, where did I go after that? I was in Indianapolis for a year, and then I was in, I was in the Quad Cities for a year. Then I went to Mascoutah for 6 years. That's an interesting, and if you give me a minute, a little second there too. What Mascoutah did in their, I don't know if it was in their charter or in their code, but they required every project that went before the Plan Commission to be in conformance with the comp plan. It was in an ordinance that required it. I always thought that was cool. And then I was in Ferguson. I went to Beyond Housing for a while, and then in Ferguson, and then Berkeley most recently, and now I'm here.
Welcome back.
So we're just breaking in Joel. So will he continue to?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
And you're doing
I
a good
will,
job,
I will
Joel.
take the council pieces, and Renee's still going to handle the business things. So, as I said, I bounced on either side of the planning and economic development line. I like being on straddling that line. I do very well there, but I'm content to sit on the planning side for a while. Yes, yes, he was. I was around when this building was renovated. So I remember when this was all under construction. Yes. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again.
One more thing you guys might care about tomorrow, stormwater update is at the regular session, 7:30. If you're interested, of course, it'll be recorded on YouTube the next day. And also, Deputy City Manager is going to give an update on the planning department during the work session, which is the 6:30. So those are two things that I could see the Plan Commission being interested in.
All right. Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Hi.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We will see you April 7th.
Thank you.